Welcome on in, everybody. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 4 live stream for the Sony Open. Looking forward to breaking down some Showdown and some prize picks for you guys. And we got ourselves some playoff football today as well. So a lot of sports on the docket. I'll be watching both the football and the golf on both of my monitors. So just looking forward to it. Both sweats on both sides, and to get ready to take on this golf slate. So welcome on in, everybody. Hopefully you're having a great start to your Sunday, and let's make it a Sunday fun day with a little bit of a Showdown sweat. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. We'll hop into the golf course. Good morning to Peach. Hopefully you're doing well here. And I know yesterday you had a pretty decent day on the Showdown side. I know a few others in the chat ended up taking down GPPs yesterday. Hopefully we can add to it here on a Sunday. So yesterday the course played significantly easier than we saw for Thursday and Friday. And that was a combination of both the weather and the pin locations. We knew the weather was going to be ideal, right around 3 to 5 miles an hour winds. And in the morning, it truly looked like there was not a breath out there for at least an hour or two. And the pin locations were also set up for scoring. You had front pins on the par fives. The par 4 10th was also set at a relatively easy location. And a few of the front 9 tee boxes were also moved up. The front 9 is typically right around 200, sometimes 250 yards longer than the back 9. And yesterday, it only played right around 100 yards longer. So they took a lot of the added distance, ended up chopping it down, and it ended up being right around a 2.3 shot under par average. I wasn't really expecting that. It looks like they're trying to defend this golf course with the extra length of the rough, them letting the course get a little bit firmer and faster this time around. I didn't think they were going to take it easy on the players, but of course, we're not always going to be right here. This was definitely one of the cases where I got burned a little bit yesterday on prize picks. I expected it to play a little bit more difficult. I thought it'd be a little bit firmer and faster, and I still ended up hitting a bunch of overs on birdie or better. But when it came to the individual stat categories like fairways or greens regulation, they all ended up pushing. They all ended up hitting their projection pretty much exactly on the mark. So it wasn't drastically bad from that end, but it definitely played a lot easier yesterday than I expected. When you look at the top end scores, I did mention I thought we'd see a few 8 under par scores. A majority of them came from people that were quote unquote chasers, the sort of players we wanted to target yesterday. Andrew Putnam, Nick Taylor, Will Gordon, Hayden Buckley, Siwoo Kim, Kuchar, Taylor, Nate Lashley. All of these players were in my player pool yesterday. So that's why I ended up having right around a 4x day myself. It's why a lot of people in the Discord, on the Patreon, ended up winning GPPs yesterday, because all of these chasers ended up playing well. The only guy towards the top of the board that really did anything was a Hayden Buckley, and he was one of the few pieces of quote-unquote chalk right there, right around 10%, that I was actually willing to eat yesterday. So there's a layer of luck involved for going out there and picking that one piece of chalk that ends up hitting. But our strategy for round 3 is almost exclusively to go out there and take those chasers. And now that we're here for round 4, we have to change our tune a little bit. I'll remind you multiple times throughout the show, we do have placement points involved here with Sunday Showdown. But when you have an 8 under par score out there, 7, 6 under par galore, you're going to have those scores, right? Those extra 6 or 7 points you're getting for finishing like 3rd or 4th in this event aren't going to be all that meaningful when you're having players posting 55 to 60 plus fantasy point performances on a Showdown slate. That's what you need. Those 5 to 6 points become irrelevant at that point. The one thing I'll say is that you probably need the winner. Whoever goes out there today, shoots a real low score, is actually able to capture the full 12 points for first place. Probably going to have in the GPP, because if they're winning this golf tournament, they more than likely had a ceiling day to begin with, especially with how condensed the leaderboard is. You can see Hayden Buckley is leading by 2, but there's a massive pack of players within 5 shots. And given how easy the course is playing, we could see something like a 62 or a 63 shot once again here Sunday, even with the wind that we're going to talk about here in a second. Hayden Buckley there at 15 under par could have a handful, if not couple handfuls of players running up on him by the time he gets there to 18. So let's see what's going on in chat. We got the Peach down there. What's going on, Andrew? Hopefully you guys are doing well. And let's talk about this weather. This weather is going to be a little bit of a curveball. So throughout the first 3 days, I say outside of Friday, there was a little bit windy Friday afternoon. You saw scoring average rate around even par. We've seen extremely benign conditions. So when we take a look at this weather report for Sunday, you might think it looks a whole lot worse, right? It's between the 6 to 12 mile an hour mark when it comes to your sustained winds. The wind gusts aren't all that much higher. In fact, only about 1 mile an hour higher than your sustained winds. So you might think that this looks twice as worse. So this is going to completely throw off players. I'm not really buying that all so much. It doesn't look all that bad out there. I mean, 6 to 12 miles an hour are what these players are used to, particularly for a coastal track like a Kauai. I don't think it's going to affect scoring all that much. What I'm a little bit more worried about are these pin locations, which look absolutely devilish. I mean, first off, 9 and 18, your two par fives, are back pins. The back left pin for number 9 isn't all that bad because it's only a 500-yard par 5. So you're still going to see plenty of birdies there, especially because it's only 500 yards. The 18 there in the back right, it's not going to be quite the gimme birdie look as what you saw yesterday or there for Friday's round where they had those front pin locations. The back right pin on 18 is a little bit trickier because it's up on a plateau. It does make the second shot a little bit more demanding, particularly if you decide to lay up to the end of the dog leg on 18, which a majority of players have done over the last few days, particularly with how long the rough is this week. So this is going to make things a little bit more difficult. Number 10, your drivable par 4. You have that back right pin. It's up on the ledge, about 3/4 of the way through number 10 green. Right where I have my cursor here, there's a huge, I don't want to call it a false front, but it's got a steep slope like a false front, where if you end up missing it just short of that, you're going to be putting about 3-4 yards uphill, like 10-12 feet uphill, making that an extremely difficult up and down just to make a par. So at hole number 10, you can tell that they're making this risk reward. They're trying to give you a bone, but also try to punish you if you end up missing that shot. And then at holes number 9 and 18, they're still birdie holes, but you've got to execute a hell of an iron shot to get there. So even though the winds don't look all that bad, I do think it's going to play significantly more difficult. The reason why I mentioned the winds there on Friday afternoon is because I think it's going to play in between the two rounds. I think you're going to see plenty of guys end up ejecting themselves here. When you get that 10 to 12 mile an hour wind, that's going to lead to quite a few more missed greens regulation. So perhaps when you're looking at the top of the board, we need to be looking at some of these around the green players, which really outside of the top 10, I mean, Andrew Putnam's got an okay around the green game. Siwoo Kim, when he's on his game, can be good around the green, but there's no one up here that has an elite level short game. I mean, literally, there's no one up here. I mean, Maverick McNeely would be the closest thing that we have to a quote-unquote elite level short game. He's still extremely inconsistent in that category, and he's a whole 5 shots back. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement on this leaderboard. You're going to see a lot of birdies made, especially on 9, 18, 10, where you see a majority of your scoring. But you're going to see quite a few bogeys today here on Sunday. So if you can find somebody that could go out there, get you that bogey-free round, I think you're going to be one of maybe 2-3 players in the entire field that's able to accomplish that feat here for Sunday. So I'm expecting slightly harder conditions, but the winds aren't going to be the main reason why. They're going to add a little bit of difficulty, like I said, with hitting greens. But these pin locations are really going to make the difference when it comes to scoring. In terms of birdie better average, it was well over 4.5 yesterday. It was 4.65. Here for Sunday, I'd probably put it right around 4 birdies. Now, for the Thursday and Friday, it was right around 3.66. It was 3.82 there on Thursday's round. That's going to improve just because some of those lower tier players were cut out of the field, right, when you had that cut line there after Friday. But yeah, these pin locations, they look a little bit devilish to say the least. Looks like it could cause a few players problems. Let's look at a few other wind sources just to make sure that we have all of our everything in order here. So if you take a look at the weather, they have it, a little bit lower winds here, I'd say, on Windy app than you had over there at Windfinder. Your wind gusts only going up to right around 11 miles an hour, right around 7 to 8 miles an hour of sustained winds. So like I said, really not all that bad. I think a lot of the overreaction on Prize Picks to posting all the props higher, if you were just considering the weather, I think it would be an overreaction. Perhaps it's appropriate because of some of those pin location movements, but the weather is not going to be the issue. Go over here to Willie Weather. They're a little bit, they actually think it's going to be a little bit worse. So here right around 8 a.m., that's when the first tee times are going to be 8 a.m. local time over there. They have it at 13.9 mile an hour winds. Over here at 11, 12, 2, they have it closer to 16. So there's a little bit of variance there. Willie Weather thinks it's going to be a little bit worse than Windfinder and, of course, the Windy app. But, like all weathermen out there, guys, you could probably split the middle in all of their forecasts, and that's what's going to end up happening. They're all more than likely going to end up incorrect there. So let's go ahead, hop over to the DFS side now, go through some of my top plays for the slate. And what's going on, Patrick? I see you down there in chat as well. If you guys have any questions at any point, feel free to go ahead and toss them down in chat. But what we're going to do here is just go through the player pool. But before we go player by player, let's talk about Sunday Showdown in general. as we typically do here, because Sunday Showdown a little bit different than what we have here for Friday and, of course, Saturday. So for Sunday, we have those placement points that I hinted at before, and boy, oh boy, do they affect ownership. If you take a look at the numbers here on the right for projected ownership, a majority of your pieces of quote-unquote chalk are going to be up there at least 10 under par. So Taylor Montgomery, he's 29.3% owned. A lot of that has to do with his position on the leaderboard. Go down here, 26.3% on Hayden Buckley. All of that has to do with the fact that he's in first place. And even the guys that are getting inflated ownership, like 22%, 22.4% on Hideki Matsuyama, or at least in respectable positions on the leaderboard. So when we're playing Sunday Showdown, particularly at a birdie fest, like in general we have at this event, now I don't think on Sunday it's going to be quite as big a birdie fest as what we might have historically had around Waialae Country Club, but these placement points mean even less, because like I was saying before, if you're shooting 7-8 under par, scoring 55 to 60 fantasy points, somebody that shoots 3 under par and ends up finishing in third place is irrelevant, because the 3 under par score is going to be right around like 45, maybe even 45 fantasy points at that level. And those extra 5 to 6 points you're getting for placement don't really mean all that much when you have all these other guys scoring 60 plus fantasy points. So don't fall in love with the placement points too much. Don't fall in love with that chalk too much. But one thing I will say is typically for Sunday Showdown, you have to eat 1 or 2 pieces of chalk to win. The winning lineup is usually going to have the winner in it, which is typically somebody that's chalky. They still have to have a really good round. Keep that in mind. They still got to go out there, shoot like 6-7 under par, but they do typically have the winner, and then usually at least 1 other piece of chalk. So for Saturday Showdown, you guys know yesterday it was extremely profitable for us to just go out there and essentially fade all of the chalk, all of the guys at the top of the board. We're not going to be nearly as cut and dry here. There's going to be a few players like a Taylor Montgomery that I'm still getting to, because if he went out there and he was in first place or had a really good round here on Saturday, he'd be 50% owned. He would be by far your highest owned player. He's at the top of the board, so he's going to get more ownership inherently. He's playing well. He's arguably the best player left in this field, especially after some of those top-end players ended up getting cut, and played wonderfully there for Thursday and Friday, right? So I love the bounce back spot. I like the fact that he's not that mega chalk that he could have been if he had that really good round there on Saturday. So love him there at 10,400. Hideki Matsuyama is 22% owned. He's a little bit further back. But again, I'm not so worried about the leaderboard at this point. It's all about going out there and just shooting a low score. That's how you're going to get into the optimal here for Sunday Showdown. So at -8, he still has some top 5 equity. I mean, if he goes out there and shoots 7-8 under par like I'm hoping, that could get him into at least the top 10, getting at least a bigger boost in terms of his placement points than he would have before. And the thing that matters with Hideki is yesterday his ball striking was on point. He was hitting plenty of fairways. He was laying up a bunch off the tee, which I'm okay with because his iron play was fantastic. He had plenty of looks in that 10 to 20 foot range. Just unfortunately for his first 8 holes, couldn't make a thing. On both par 5s, ended up taking care of him. On the back 9, just ended up making birdies because he hit it to 5 feet. He got tired of missing those 10 to 20 footers, so he decided to just hit it closer to the hole. The thing for Hideki is last year he gained over 7 strokes putting on these greens at Waialae Country Club. So he has shown the ability in the past to go out there and fill it up with ease. You know, hit the ball the same way Hideki. Just try and get a little bit of a better putter going, right? Make sure it's not ice cold. And he could very easily shoot 6 or 7 under par. So love him at 9,900. And especially because he's being a little bit overlooked there. Let's see. What are you saying about Patrick? Joe said it would. Who's Joe? you probably said it before and it would have made more sense, but not sure. Yeah, Hideki was fire with approach. Actually, I'm gonna look at his shots gained number. So I was just watching him on ESPN Plus. So it's just all anecdotal as evidence. It's not really anything concrete. Let's take a look at the actual shots gained number because it had to have been impressive yesterday. He was just hitting dart after dart. So stats, round 3. Let's see. So his approach number, he gained 4.3 strokes on approach. By far the best in the field. And did I close it out? If I did, okay, I didn't. He lost 2 strokes putting yesterday, right? So, I mean, just play a neutral, right? Go out there, play to a neutral. He's going to have a nuclear round. And he goes out there and even gains on the greens. I mean, yeah, you know, he could have easily been 8 under. I'm all for it. He's probably my top showdown play, especially given the ownership. He would probably be 30, 40% owned as well if he was up there in contention. And now we get him at 22%, which is just fantastic. Love that sort of leverage spot. So if you guys are not playing Corey Connors, you could go there. I just can't play everybody up top, right? Because I'm taking a chalky Taylor Montgomery, that's taken up at least half of my lineups. And then I'm investing about half of them to Hideki as well. So I just don't have space for Corey Connors. If you wanted to play him over a Montgomery or Hideki, I completely understand it. I probably wouldn't play Brian Harman. I'll just go ahead and say that. He's a little bit too safe for me, right? He's a little bit more of a consistency sort of guy as opposed to your aggressive birdie maker that I'm looking for in the Sunday Showdown. Russell Henley, I like getting there. Now, I haven't been as bullish on him for Showdown over the last few days, but now that we're getting him on Sunday and he's being completely overlooked, I'm all for it because just like a Hideki, we've seen him gain on these greens in the past. In fact, he's gained over 13 strokes in an event around Waialae before when he went out there and won in 2013. He's $9,700. We know he likes Bermuda grass. Count me in. Russell Henley was great with the irons, was able to make 5 birdies yesterday, and did it completely under the radar. You can see he's only 17% owned, so not somebody you have to invest a ton into to get leverage to the field. JJ Spawn, I'm okay with playing. He's not in my personal poll because I can't play everybody, right? Like I was saying before, but he lost 3 strokes, I believe like 3.23 strokes putting yesterday. By far the worst round he's had for the last 4 or 5 months. Actually, the putter's been a huge strength for JJ Spawn over the last month and a half or so. Last week was top 5 in the field in shots gained putting, but through the first 2 rounds was number 1 in the field in shots gained putting. So to see him go out there and completely hemorrhage all of those strokes was surprising, but I don't expect that to continue very long or to last very long. So if you wanted to play JJ Spawn, I'm all for it. But like I said, there's just guys I prefer a little bit more. One of those players would be a KH Lee. He's another under the radar guy at -9 who I honestly thought he was going to be like 30% owned. But once I ran my algorithm and he was there at 18.4%, I have to be a buyer. He played great yesterday. The irons were there. The putter finally started to heat up for a KH Lee. And there at -9, if he has that ceiling performance, that 6-7 under par round we need to crack the optimal lineup, he's going to get a bunch of placement points too. That's going to be a top 5 finish, which is just the icing on top. I really like these fringe options that aren't necessarily in contention, but they're also not out of contention, where if they have that ceiling round, they're going to get into the top 5, right? And you might go, oh, but they have to have a ceiling round to get to the top 5. Well, I don't care about anything else. It's ceiling or bust for me out here. We're playing in a GPP. These are for the large field contest. At least that's the sort of GPP DFS contest that I'm playing in out there. And all I care about is whether a player can get to that ceiling. If they don't get there, I mean, that's 90%, 98% of the pools ain't going to get to the optimal lineup, right? I understand that, right? I've made that reconciliation, understanding that most of the players aren't going to get there. It's all about whether they can, because there's more than a handful of players. I'd say there's probably 20, 30% of this field, if not more than that, that just can't get to the ceiling. Whether 1, they don't have the aggressiveness, 2, they're just not a high quality enough player, or 3, just from the game theory aspect, like 26% ownership on a Hayden Buckley, like for him to get to his ceiling, he's going to probably do it like 40. He's probably going to win this event, Hayden Buckley, with a 2-shot lead, like 30% of the time. Something like that, right? And let's look at what Data Golf says, right? Data Golf's I trust their numbers pretty good here. They have it a 35.8% chance of Hayden Buckley winning, right? That's respectable. So 3rd% chance winning, right? He's 26% owned. To get leverage to him, you got to play at least 50% of the field, right? You got to play probably 55, 60% if you're looking to get true leverage there on a Hayden Buckley, particularly in those higher dollar contests where he'll be even more chalky. He's only got that 36% win equity, right? So like, those are the sort of decisions where like I'll just take the pivots all day, especially here for Sunday Showdown, where at a birdie fest, the scoring is going to be everything. It's going to be all about that birdie production, not so much those placement points. Joe DiNardo, weather broadcaster. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, the freaking weather is crazy out there with these golfers. I mean, every site will say something different. I mean, it was even worse for Thursday. If you guys remember, like half the sites were saying it was going to be nasty all day. Half the sites said it was going to be completely calm all day. I've had it. I've had it with the the weatherman. You're getting a lot of Hideki. Yeah, me too. I'm going to have at least 50% Hideki today. Parker says, you're very excited to see who comes out on top. Not a big gap. Agreed. I think it's a good opportunity for live betting. So some of these guys at -10 are probably the most intriguing in terms of a live bet. But I mean, even -9 down here, like a Spawn, a KH Lee, if one of these guys is able to go out there and post a ceiling round or something special, and Hayden Buckley kind of spins his wheels, I mean, yeah, they're more than live because the whole real quote unquote pack is there at -12, -13. It's just Hayden Buckley out there at -15. So if he's not doing anything special, it brings even more players into play. I mean, even Hideki at -8, I selfishly want to say this, right? Like if he shot a 61 or 62 today, like, 8 under par, something like that, it's probably not going to win unless Hayden Buckley completely falls off. One of those 12, 13 under par guys is probably going to end up taking it home, but he can end up in the top 3, something like that, which would be great for GPPs. It'd be great for my my week-long success. I actually have quite a few. I meant to mention this before. I don't want to jinx anything, so I'm not going to say too much. I have quite a few bullets up there at the top of the GPP this week. I had a bunch of 666s. Even with a bunch of Sanjay M, who ended up killing lineups, also a bunch of Keith Mitchell, I still ended up getting right around a 10% 6 of 6 rate. So I'm hoping that Hideki, he's the main guy in most of those lineups, can get it done here. That'd be pretty sweet. That's for sure. Yeah, he's scary. You're getting a lot of them. It is scary. Showdown general is scary. You got to play a lot more people that you want to. And yeah, no, you're good. You're from the Berg. You're saying, sorry. Yeah, when I grew up, bro, I wasn't that old up there in Pittsburgh. So a lot of those references when it comes to like the news or like things that like adults would know about, I'm not as versed on. So I have to say that because I moved when I was like 13. So yeah, no, and I know that I'm from Pittsburgh. Now that you say it, Joe Leonardo, he's on the news up there. I know what you're saying. I got you. That shit goes over my head sometimes because I was so young when I lived up there. And I went to college up there, but we weren't watching the news. We weren't we weren't paying attention to the weather forecast too much up there. Let's get back into this player poll. Again, if you guys have questions, feel free to go ahead and toss them down in chat. In this 9K range, I mean, I told you guys I love KH Lee, but even Maverick McNeely there at -10, I think that 22.6% is pretty fair. Like he's going to be chalky, right? He's -10, but I also love his chances of getting into the mix here. He's a great putter. We know he can get hot in a hurry. And to this point, though McNeely has gained on the greens, he hasn't really had that nuclear day on the greens where he's gone out there and just made everything. Gained like 2.5, 3 strokes to the field. That's kind of what Maverick does, right? When he's gaining like 1 stroke to the field, 1.5 strokes, like he has for 2 out of the last 3 days. Some people might look at that and go like, oh, he's doing it all with the putter. Well, that's just his game. Maverick does that regularly. He's one of the best putters on the PGA Tour, period. In fact, you look at his shots gained putting numbers on Bermuda and you go, oh, he's a gainer to it. Well, that's 0.8 shots worse than his baseline. His baseline's over a stroke gained with the flat stick. So I love that. I think that he's got that ceiling performance in him. And there at -10, he could get up there into the contention, perhaps even win this golf tournament as well. Hoagie's okay. You probably wanted to play him yesterday like I did. At this point, he's -5. He's getting a little bit more ownership than he was for Saturday Showdown. So I'm not going to be there. Cam Davis, always intriguing on a Showdown format. He's one of the more aggressive players on tour, an extremely high birdie or better percentage player. In terms of fantasy scoring, that's exactly what you're looking for. The issue for me is that I do like Siwoo. I do like a McNeely, and both of them are a little bit chalky. So I have to invest a significant amount of my pull into them. So I'm just not able to fit them into my lineups. But with Siwoo, I like the around the green play. With that added wind, with the pressure, I expect a lot of those guys up top to perhaps struggle when it comes to getting up and down. But Siwoo Kim has been there before. We know that he has the mental capability to keep it together. And at $8,800, he's 3 shots off the lead at this point. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if Siwoo Kim ended up winning this golf tournament. So even at 22%, I'm going to eat that chalk. Chris Kirk, same thing. He's a proven prospect up top. Now, the difference between a Chris Kirk and then some of the other guys up top, I mean, even in Andrew Putnam, I'm willing to play at -12, is that these are proven commodities. Players that, at least for 2 out of the 3, have won before on the PGA Tour, and players that have at least been in contention a handful of times. So you're not going to see, at least I'm hoping, you're not going to see nearly as many nerves from a Chris Kirk and Andrew Putnam as some of their other peers in that range. And also striping the ball well. Chris Kirk has been one of the best players from tee to green in the entire field. And Andrew Putnam just loves the Waialae Country Club greens. Yesterday, gained over 4 strokes on the greens. In days 1 and 2, was able to gain over a stroke with the putter. And for his career, I believe every single time he showed up here, he's gained over 4 strokes on the greens. So it's not like this is outrageous. Kind of like a McNeely. if we're a ball striker going out there and gaining all of these strokes with the flat stick, I would feel a little bit cautious about it and be a little bit weary of getting to them. But when it's a putting specialist, like a Putnam, right? It's in his name, right? Putnam, or a McNeely out there who's known for that flat stick, I'm okay with that, right? Like a Montgomery, right? Montgomery goes out there, gains like 4 strokes with the flat stick. Duh, that's just what he does, right? So you don't want to hold that against those elite level putters. But yeah, if Chris Kirk was going out there and he was gaining 4 strokes with the flat stick like he did there in round 1, well, yeah, then you're going to expect some regression to come. So it depends on the player. It's an individual basis. Denny McCarthy, another guy where if he gained 4 strokes, we wouldn't be surprised about it. And to this point, he has been carried by the putter, but I'm not worried about it. It's a short course. These elite level putters are going to putt the best. That's what they do. That's why they're an elite level putter. So at 9.6%, he's there at -9, kind of just like his ownership, by the way, is kind of getting choked off here. So the reason why he's not more chalky is because you have a relatively high-owned Kirk around him, a relatively high-owned Poston, relatively high-owned Siwoo Kim as well. All of those players are taking the attention away from a Denny McCarthy. I actually don't hate Harris English. He played horribly yesterday with the putter, which Harry English, because we know that, right? One of the better putters in this field, if not one of the better putters in the world when he's rolling it the right way. So the fact that he lost, I believe it was over a stroke putting yesterday. Let me give you the exact number. Good old Harry English really struggled on the greens. He struggled in general yesterday, so it wasn't just the flat stick. But let's bring it up. He shot +2, and in round 3, he ended up losing 1.75 shots putting, which, yeah, for Harris English is extremely unusual. He's one of the better putters in this field, particularly when you put him on Bermuda grass. So let's hop into the 7K range now. Kitayama, I guess, last guy in the 8K range. Still like him. He had a horrible day once again. He's lost over a stroke putting in all 3 days. And like I mentioned yesterday, I'm going right back to him. It's like, obviously I'm perhaps just a little bit too stubborn for my own good out here, but he's good on Bermuda. We've seen it before. He's had these ceiling performances. And now he's only 5.7% owned. That ownership level has just dropped and dropped and dropped as the days have gone on. As has his position on the leaderboard. It has also dropped over that span. But he's got that ceiling in him. And on Sunday Showdown, when you need pivots to try and differentiate your lineup, I mean, if I'm going to take a bunch of this 8K chalk, right, like a Siwoo Kim, if I'm going to put Chris Kirk in the lineup, those sort of players, and like a Montgomery, a Kitayama is the perfect sort of play to differentiate that lineup, right? He's sub 5%. That one spot's going to put you in a small subset of the field in terms of duplicating yourself. And then if you add one more pivot on top of that, you should be pretty good to go, because, a low-owned play when it comes to your product ownership is extremely powerful. That's why you use product ownership when trying to evaluate how chalky your lineup is going to be, because when you take somebody that's only 5% owned, that filters the entire field down to 5%, right? So it doesn't matter how chalky you are with perhaps your first 2 to 3 spots, this sort of play can almost completely make up for it. And if you leave salary on the table, which you can always do here for Showdown, that's going to make it even more likely that you end up being unique. Let's catch up on chat, see what's going on. Yumin says, you've always loved Decky and DFS. Unfortunately, you never get them right. So I'm pretty good about getting Decky right. There are players that I just cannot get right for my life. I mean, Corey Connors comes to mind, Russell Henley, who are both in this field this week. I don't know. When I see their name, Willie Z, I don't tend to get right all that often. Matt Fitzpatrick is like, I'm infamous for getting incorrectly. So yeah, everyone's going to have a few players like that. I unfortunately have a couple handful of players that I can't get correctly. And usually those are players I end up fading because, if I'm not going to get them right when I play them, just avoid them altogether. But yeah, everyone's got those players. You said like Davis too. Yeah, I love Davis. Love the birdie or better percentage for him. Corey says, I need a Kitayama sighting for main slate. Yeah, I love that too. I mean, I have them in a few 6 of 6s, but those lineups aren't even close to the top of the board. Actually, let me take a look at my top lineup. I'll give you guys an idea of what I'm sweating. I'm not going to give you the full lineup though, because that's how you end up jinxing your chances of actually winning anything. Let me see I haven't even looked at this in a while. So my lineup that's in the top 150 right now, it's actually pretty consistent. My worst players in that lineup are Hideki Matsuyama and Adam Scott. So they're both there at -8. They're in the top 25 right now. If I get a ceiling round from Hideki, a ceiling round from Scott, it wouldn't suck to get one from KH Lee or Denny McCarthy either. We could be looking at something today. We'll have to see. But yeah, Corey, Kitayama, He's freaking MIA this week. That guy, he just can't make any putts. Day one, he hit like 80% of his greens, like 83% to be exact. Next day, he only missed one green in regulation the entire day. Yesterday was a little bit sketchier when it came to the ball striking, but like, geez, like what's the guy got to do? Right? Hit all 18 greens to go out there and shoot under par. I guess we'll see. Mondo says Bads is certainly an elite level putter. He has been on an uptick lately, paired with Hideki. You have both of them for your round 4 showdown. Yeah, so there's something to actually pairing up players. You'll hear all the time that, oh, these two are drafting off each other, or, oh, the juju or the momentum in this group is really going in the negative direction. If you're going to take advantage of that correlation, Showdown is the best place to do so. I've heard people for 4-round contests going, oh, I'm going to play these two guys. They're paired together for the first 2 rounds. But then you have the other 2 rounds at the end of the event to worry about, right? Where they're not going to be paired together. Whereas in a Showdown format, you're going to have that correlation, right? Because it's only for the single round. I like it, man. I think you're thinking the right way. Trying to find different ways to get correlation, especially when it comes to Showdown, is a great idea. And let's see, you have Jaeger and Kitayama there as well. I'm not sure if those two are playing together. I don't think they have to be, but love Kitayama and Jaegerbomb. I'm always going to be on. Love myself some Jaegerbomb. Is it too risky to set a roll for a 2-player? So to force in 2 players under 5 to 8% ownership? I do that a lot of times, especially if I'm taking chalky players. And on a Sunday showdown where you kind of have to take a few chalky players towards the top of the board, yeah, I think it's a good idea. So if you're building on an optimizer, you want to make sure that every lineup is going to have some leverage. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Just make sure that in your group, you have a robust amount of players, right? Make sure that it's cycling through at least 10, 15 low-owned players so that you're not just getting all the same sort of players jammed into lineups, right? You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket there. But no, it's not too risky if you set it up the right way. Just make sure you have enough pivots actually in that group to make it make sense. And a lot of those pivots are probably going to be your cheaper options, right? Like your 7 and 6K options. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea, actually. To Peach, great idea, sharp idea out there. Win says, you might be a Willie Z whisperer. Hey, then you gotta let us know down in chat. I'm not very good at reading good old Willie Z. If you're the Willie Z whisperer, please give us your knowledge. I am all for it. I need any help I can get when it comes to Willie Z. Let's go down to the 7K range. We'll go quickly through this here. So Steven Jaeger, I know we just mentioned him. He's an aggressive, extremely effective putter that I'm looking to get to. Loves Bermuda grass, is there at -8. So kind of just sneaking along, right? He could go out there, have a ceiling round, perhaps get into the top 5. That would be huge for his chances for the tournament, but also for our chances over here on Showdown. David Lipsky, I actually thought he'd be a lot more chalky. And when I ran this, I feel like this ownership projection is a little bit conservative on him. I could see him being 15, 16%, but the algorithm, which I tend to trust, which is historically been extremely accurate when it comes to these projections. I don't touch them all too much before I end up posting them out there. I just let the computer do its thing. 12.6%. I think a lot of that is because these 8K options are quote unquote so much safer. David Lipsky is so much more expensive than he was for your 4-round contest. I mean, he was a 6K range golfer. I don't think a lot of people, or at least the computer, the algorithm doesn't think a lot of people are going to be willing to get there because of a lot of those factors. The chalk up top and then his increase in price. So if you're looking for a leverage play that's, in second place right now, and I used leverage play lightly, right? Like he's still going to be, at least in my opinion, probably like 15, 16% owned. I don't know, 30% Lipsky doesn't sound all that bad for somebody that's been striping it over the first 3 rounds. And the thing that makes me really okay getting there is it's not like the putter has carried him. Over the last 2 days, he's been a loser or right around a neutral to the field when it comes to his shots gained putting stats. And he still shot well under par, still has himself in contention. And you can see, though he's a loser on Bermuda grass, it's actually half a stroke better than his 36-round baseline. So he's been horrendous with the putter over the last 36 rounds. But on Bermuda, at least for his career, he's been a little bit better than that. So hopefully he can go out there, at least be right around a neutral with the putter once again, because that has seemingly been pretty effective for him up until this point. In terms of some of these other options, Grayson Siggs, super low owned. Only 3.3%. I mean, you just got to love that there at $7,600. You're probably not going to get many placement points from a SIG. So you are going to truly need that ceiling performance, someone like 7, 8 under par. But for somebody that has a 59 on record there at the RSM Classic, he did it not during tournament hours, but he did it at the Seaside course there for the Sea Island. He's capable of going low. We know that. And he's an elite level putter. So he's definitely capable of making birdies in bunches. Ben Griffin there at -10. I like him at right around 15.5%. Will Gordon, another young up and coming player I'm playing. Both of these guys only about 15, 16%. A lot of that is for the same reason as Lipsky's ownership, right? Even though he's towards the top of the board, people would rather get to those 8K options that quote unquote seem safer than some of these 7K options, which means that getting leverage to them isn't all that crazy. And I know for Showdown, right? Like you don't want to play too many of these guys that are 15 to 20% owned. That's why we have the Kitayamas of the world, the Grayson Siggs to mix in. The Peach before kind of hit the nail on the head, right? As long as you're mixing in one or two of those pivot plays to your lineups, preferably probably at least two of them into your lineups, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be able to build lineups that are unique, that still have leverage to the field and have an actual shot of winning first place, because you don't want to just be fading a Ben Griffin of the world, a Bill Gordon. There's going to be at least 2-3 of these guys here at -10, -11, probably even more, probably like 5 or 6 of them. Your optimal lineup might be all guys right around like -10, -11 that get into at least the top 5, top 10. So, and honestly, Ben Griffin, Will Gordon, I think you're two of your best shots to do so, right? Number 9 and number 10, respectively, when it comes to the modeling this week. Both are just absolute model darlings. And you guys know I'm an analytics guy, so I'm going to be all about our model darlings. Patton Kizzire, this guy just kills round 4 showdowns. So he's another one of those pivot plays that I'm taking to differentiate lineups. He's only 4.9% owned. And last year, I believe it was at the Waste Management, the week after that, whatever golf tournament was after Waste Management last year, and round 4 showdown at the Waste Management, he shot like -9. He had like the round of the event. And the week after that, he went and shot like 10 under par the next Sunday showdown. So that everyone was starting to call him like the Sunday showdown killer. And both of those times, he was out of contention. He was like -1, or he was like even par after Saturday, and then just went absolutely nuclear. So maybe I'm just going off of that a little bit too much, but I know that he's an absolute madman. And in the past, even when he's out of the tournament, has just gone out there and roasted a course. And perhaps that's what frees him up. He doesn't have that pressure on him. He's not worried about the consequences of missing golf shots. And that's why he plays well. So I'll definitely be on Patton Kizzire. And if you were playing Showdown back in the day, you know what I'm talking about. That guy he's broken slates before. He's had the best round by like 4 shots before at a few Showdown slates. So I'm not going to miss out on that, even if he didn't play so well on Saturday. Brendan Steele, another absolute madman of a Showdown player. He's 4.7% owned, so definitely easy to get leverage to. And another player that's a lot better on Bermuda grass than he is on other surfaces. Let's see what's going on. A few questions. Yibin says you're double the ownership on Lipsky. I love it. Yeah, he's only 12.5%, so quarter of your lineups. It's a pretty good way to get leverage. London says, do you think today is going to be a birdie fest? Not quite as much as what we saw Saturday. So when we go over to prize picks, I'll go over the golf course once again, like I did earlier, but it's looking like the winds are a little bit higher. The pin locations are certainly a little bit more difficult for Sunday than they were for Saturday. So I wouldn't say it's a birdie fest, but you're going to see right around a 1 under par average, maybe like 1.2 shots under. So your average PGA tournament, I'd say. It's not going to be a birdie fest. It's also not going to be very difficult for today's round. It's a tough one to gauge, right? So it's not one or the other. He says you have exactly 30%. Makes sense. And yeah, Kizzire is a freaking madman. I love it, though. That's perfect for Showdown. He's a high risk, high reward option. And that's kind of what I'm all about here. Let's go into this bottom of the 7K, top of the 6K range now. So we have Troy Merritt, $7,200. I'll be getting there. He's only 2.3% owned. Another player that's a lot better on Bermuda than he is on other surfaces. Looking at MJ Daffy, he had a really good swing over there in South Africa. So he was playing a lot on the European tour while we had the fall swing. He actually wasn't playing much on the PGA tour. Had a few starts over here stateside, but wasn't as impressive. But you got him over there internationally, and he had a really, really good stretch there. So on Bermuda, you can see he's a better putter than his baseline, which is, again, just a recurring theme with a lot of the players I'm getting to here. An aggressive guy that's way behind the sticks, also super low owned, that brings that upside, right? And also that really good leverage opportunity at that ownership level. Cole Hammer continues to be way lower owned than he should be. This 1.7% is probably going to end up being a little bit too low because people are going to react to that, right? They're going to see super low owned Cole Hammer and try and jam him into lineups. And that's going to include myself because we know that he's great on Bermuda. He was fantastic at the RSM Classic. the Seaside course, which is my #1 comp course for this week. And yesterday was able to make a bunch of birdies. On Friday was well behind the 8 ball. Actually, I believe on Thursday through his first like 7-8 holes, Cole Hammer was 4 over par. Like he was almost in dead for last place to start this golf tournament. Ended up making the cut with a really good stretch there on Friday and continued that over here for Saturday. So I like the momentum. I think that he's just a much, much better player than his price tag here. I mean, Cole Hammer, in terms of talent level, is like a $8,000 golfer, like at the very least. I can just tell you that. You guys will agree with me probably here in a few months after Cole Hammer has a few top 10s to his name here over the next, I'd say probably month and a half here on the PGA Tour. And then this $7,100 price tag that we're getting them at 1.7% ownership, you'll realize just how egregious that sort of number is. I mean, if you saw him in person like I did at the RSM Classic, you would understand why that's just an egregious level of ownership. The kid's a borderline superstar, and he's like 22 years old. Davis Thompson, another young up-and-coming player I'm taking. Now, he's not that good on Bermuda, but he's got the ball striking stats I'm looking for. Also, only 1.6% owned. Still a little bit salty that he didn't finish out there on Friday to try and give us just all the data we needed. But, hey, I'm not going to hold it against him too much. We'll still play him here for Showdown. Ryan Palmer, decent play. Same thing with Joseph Bramlett. Bramlett, he still hasn't found that putter. I mean, that's the reason I played him for round 2 Showdown yesterday. It's the same reason I'm getting back to him here on Sunday. Kind of like a Kurt Kitayama. Even though he hasn't found the putter to this point, it doesn't mean that he won't find it here on Sunday. And the ownership level has just continued to drop on a Bramlett. It's continued to drop on that Kitayama over the last 3 days. If anything, this is the time to buy in. We get them at the lowest level of ownership that we have all week and also the lowest price tag. Ryan Palmer, by the way, has won this event before. He has multiple top 5 finishes. So clearly likes the greens. So despite him being there at -4, not playing all that well to this point, he has more than enough ability to go ahead and turn it around quickly. Adam Schenk, another high birdie percentage player, another guy that I've played in Showdown this week that I'm not going to jump off of. When you have somebody that's a good Showdown play, and by good Showdown play, all I mean is plays well at this sort of track, so a shorter track, he checks that box, and is an aggressive player. If they fit the course and they're an aggressive player, I don't care how they're playing. I don't care if they've sucked over the last 3 days. I'm going to play him in Showdown because I know how volatile the sport is. And if somebody's a good fit, sooner rather than later, they're going to go out there and show that to us. So there's the world-class players, $6,500. Count me in there. Chad Ramey, another player who sucked yesterday, but I'm willing to get to just because he's an aggressive player. He's inconsistent. We know that about Chad Ramey, but you saw that at Kapalua. He went out there, was making a ton of birdies, just unfortunately also had a bunch of double bogeys to boot. This week, it's been kind of similar. He's been able to go out there and post decent birdie production, just has been killing himself with some of the mistakes. Luckily for us in Showdown, we don't care about the floor. We don't care about some of those mistakes. If he's not going to go out there and hit the 14, 15 greens that we need, go out there and make those 6 to 7 birdies, so be it, right? If he has that poor round, he's a freaking $6,200, $6,300 golfer for a reason. So just you can't lose sleep over taking some of these value picks. What you're more worried about is the top end upside and whether they actually bring it to the table. Tyson Alexander, this one's a huge question mark to me. Why is Lashley 9% owned when Tyson Alexander's 0.8%? So he's 10 times less owned. He's only 3 strokes back on the leaderboard. So obviously he's not in contention here. But Tyson Alexander, you guys might not know this, he's top 15 right now in the world when it comes to your FedEx Cup rankings. The fall swing, you can argue that no one's been better than Tyson Alexander out of the rookie class. Literally, actually, Taylor Montgomery certainly had a better fall swing than Tyson Alexander. But your number 2 rookie right now when it comes to your consistency is Tyson Alexander. You've seen him have a few solid Showdown slates where he's gone out there, shot 6, 7 under par. He's $6,300, so super cheap and unowned. So this is the sort of play I'm trying to get to. You can see the recent form rank is number 23 in the field, total model ranking number 45. So clearly the numbers, the metrics are starting to get behind Alexander, are starting to point him out as one of the better rookies here for this draft class. Or say rookie class, not draft class. Oh, I can't wait for the NFL draft, by the way, boys. That's going to be a lot of fun here in a few months. Super Bowl is going to be a lot of fun too. But the draft, honestly, one of my favorite nights in the entire year. But yeah, in this rookie class, Tyson Alexander, he's looking like a juicy little pivot down low. So let's see if there's any questions down in chat. If not, we're going to go over to the prize pick side. He'll come out of nowhere, absolutely. And yeah, appreciate you, bro. You're tailing. Appreciate you too, man. Appreciate you stopping by and enjoying the content. If there's any questions you have, feel free to go ahead and let me know. Craig, he didn't withdraw. That's for next week. He withdrew for next week. I'm like 90% sure. It says that on Draftkings because he's not playing next week. I'll check on the leaderboard right now, but I'm like 90% sure about that. No, he didn't withdraw, man. That's not true, Craig. It only says that on Draftkings because he withdrew for the next golf tournament. Just a heads up on that. He's definitely playing here for round 4. Let's go ahead and continue here with our prize pick side now. So we've gone through DraftKings. If you have any showdown questions, feel free to go ahead and put them down in chat. I'll answer them for you as well. But let's talk about this prize picks board for the next 5 or so minutes. So the course is going to play more difficult. If you're just hopping in now and you haven't seen it already, the wins for today look a lot harder than Saturday. I shouldn't say, actually, sorry, I didn't put that. It's not a lot harder, but they're significantly worse, right? For Saturday, there was essentially no wind. You had 3 to 5 miles an hour of sustained winds the entire day, both morning and afternoon. For Sunday, you have about twice that. So rather than 3 to 5 miles an hour, you're looking at right around 6 to right around 12 miles an hour of sustained winds. So while it's significantly worse than Saturday, it's not like we're looking at a wash, nasty conditions. Honestly, early in the week when we were looking at some of the weather forecasts, it looked like we were going to get nasty conditions. For Sunday, they were calling for like 20, 25 mile an hour wind gusts. It looks like a lot of that has died down. You take a look at the Windy app, they tend to agree. They have it closer to like 7 to 8 miles an hour of sustained winds. Your wind gusts only rate around 9 to 12. I guess 9 to 11 miles an hour of wind gusts. Nothing crazy on that end. Willy weather, a little bit less bullish about these players' chances. You can see right around 8 a.m., they have it closer to 12.8 miles an hour. So actually, believe it or not, since we last checked earlier about 30 minutes ago, they've actually made these a little bit lower in terms of your winds. And then towards midday, they have it getting up to right around 13.9 miles an hour. So Willy weather thinks it might be a little bit harsher today than what you ended up seeing on a wind finder or over here on the Windy app. But you are looking at slightly harder conditions than what we had for Saturday either way. And the pin locations are looking a little bit more dicey. So we're not going to go through every pin again, but holes number 9 and 18, your par 5s, they're back pins, which will add a little bit more difficulty to them, but they'll still be really easy birdie holes. Number 10 here with the back right pin is going to add significant difficulty. It's up there in that back shelf. These players are going to have to hit a really solid approach shot, or they're going to have to hit a perfect chip shot around the green to end up getting up and down. So you are going to see harder conditions, but I don't think it's going to play like Friday, right? Where in the afternoon it played 0.3 under. I don't think it's going to play like Monday where the average was only 0.5 under par. So something in between, right? It's not going to be like a 0.5 under. It's not going to be a 2-stroke under par average. You're probably looking at like 1.5 under, 1.2 strokes under par being your field average here for Sunday. That's at least what I'm expecting. So when we hop over here to prize picks and we're trying to go through this board, the stroke side, it seems fair. These guys at 68 strokes is probably where I'd put them. I would definitely be leaning on the under on some of the plays that I'm leaving in, like an Adam Scott, a Corey Connors. You have to like his consistency. Those are all the sort of plays I'd be leaning on and unders. But what I really took here and what I'm leaning on are these birdie or better props. Because for rounds 1 and 2, which I think are the most comparable conditions to what we're going to have here on Sunday, you had a birdie average of 3.8 and 3.66. Now, those are before the cut line. So a lot of those numbers are including low quality players, guys that missed the cut, guys that were Monday qualifiers, Miguel Castillo, right? Somebody who's like 80 years old playing in this event, all really lowering that average. So when you're taking the effective average over the first 2 days, it's something closer to like 4.2 birdies and 4.3 birdies for the players that ended up making the cut. And you have a lot of guys here at 4 birdies that are elite level players in the field. So just to give you an idea, like I had a Corey Connors over earlier in the day, but let's see, did they end up bumping a bunch of them? Let's see. They did. They bumped them right before I went on stream. How ironic is that, by the way? I can tell they watch this content. So by the way, if you're watching this, Lines Makers, you guys are completely bitch made. I'm not even going to hold back. You guys are just completely cowards. But like JJ Spawn over I still like the Harris English over there. Let's see. Did they bump all of them? Brian Harmon, you could take his over. It wasn't one of the ones I picked initially. Yeah, they went ahead and bumped like all the picks that I took. Of course they did, because that's prize picks. I had JT Poston over at 4 birdies. I ended up having, who else was it? Oh, yeah, it was Corey Connors over at 4 birdies. They're out over there at 4.5 now. So it's not that big of an issue, right? Just take Corey Connors under 69 strokes now. I'm more than fine with that. Let's see. JT Poston, 68 strokes. You take him under on that sort of level as well. These are the sort of props that I'm taking. At 68, you do have a lot of that push equity. These sort of players I'd be projecting for right around 68 strokes. Of course, if they have a good day, they could easily cover. And at 4 birdies, I think it's just a little bit less risky because you can't have a double bogey that completely derails your round. You go out there, you hit a ball OB for a JT Poston or a Connors, you are going to run into a potential double or triple bogey. So that's why I preferred their 4 birdies or better line. But bump picks went out there and decided to move everything. So, honestly, I don't know what I expected from them. They always do that shit. So I don't know why I'm complaining. That's just how they operate. They can't let anything get more than like $1,000 of action on it before bumping it, which is telling to say the least. And see if there's any comments about excuse me, guys, I'm still getting over that sickness. Sorry about that. Pro Reactor says, how do we feel about Benny Ann? Oh, he had a freaking psycho scorecard yesterday, that's for sure. The swing looks like it's in order. In general, I'm up on his chances. I think that he's got a good chance to have a solid year. Let's see. Let me find his ownership level for you, because as long as he's reasonably owned, I'm okay with it. I only have him 6% owned. He's $6,600. I think he's a really solid leverage play. So good call in there, Pro Reactor. I'm all for it. He says, Nasty Nate for the win, maybe. I've seen crazier things happen. I think he used his ceiling round yesterday, though. He was on the, excuse me, wow. The throat is giving up on me. So it's a good thing we're getting towards the end of this stream, right? Don't have to hold up that much longer here. But Nasty Nate, yeah, I think he used up his ceiling round yesterday. Right? He went out there. He had one of the best rounds of the tournament. Could he win? Could he go out there and nuke the course again? For sure. But yeah, maybe. We'll go with maybe there, right? It's possible. It's definitely possible. And yeah, post and strokes. Yeah, that's the last one I have on there right now. So because they bumped his birdie or better line, I do like the post and under on strokes. He's covered it in all 3 days. Corey Connors, I believe, has covered his 68 stroke line, or at least pushed it in 2 out of his 3 days. So yeah, I like getting to them, but I preferred their 4 birdies or better line. That's a little bit unfortunate. Let's take a look at some of the other guys at 4. I guess I don't hate Lipsky, right? Like you could take his over. That's not the worst pick in human history. Yeah, they bumped a lot of the guys that I would have been taking. I mean, even like a Chris Kirk ended up getting bumped. Putnam, you could take at 4 birdies. I also think that's a pretty sick pick. Obviously, though, right, don't use all of these in the same card. I have them on here. You can see it says it's a 6-leg flex. I did almost exclusively 2-leg powers today. I just took my pool of about 6-7 props, ended up mixing and matching them for as many cards as I possibly could. And if you guys are still out there making cards, that's what I'd recommend. I wouldn't go out there. I wouldn't be trying to make like a 6-man card. I mean, it's too volatile, right, guys? Like just play a few 2-3-man cards. You'll have fun that way. You also win a lot more money that way. But if you're going to do that, take a Brian Harman over on matchup. The reason for that is it washes away the multiplier. So you can see, obviously, if we would have taken something like Montgomery under, we'd only be getting 15x as a payout. We add one of these birdie or better matchups, which tend to be a little bit volatile. They're not my favorite props on Prize Picks, but they give you a 10x higher payout, right? So they have their time in place. Like there's a reason for using birdie or better matchups. And if I was going to take one, it would be this Harman versus Bramlett one, because Bramlett hasn't found his putter, right? So for as much as I like him in GPPs for large field contests, I don't like him on Prize Picks because he's only like 2% owned for GPPs, right? I play him in 8 to 10% of my lineups, and that is significant leverage to the field. Now, I'm only playing him in 10% of my lineups, right? Like if he sucks, that's not really going to matter all that much to the true picture of my portfolio. In a 50-50 standpoint, Brian Harman is going to beat Joseph Bramlett in birdies 65, maybe 70% of the time. So I'm going with a much more consistent player. Also hasn't been the best with the putter to this point. So Brian Harman has a lot of room for improvement with the flat stick that he could get. All of that makes me really want to play him there. I also have to say, if you're just looking for another one of these like birdie or better props to mix in, you could go with the Brian Harman regular birdie line. Just use him as one of the other guys here. But like I said, do not play 6 birdie props or 6 strokes props together. This 15x payout is just ridiculous. It's not worth it. Not even worth your time out there. It's just I'm putting all those together just to give you an idea of the props I'm taking. You look at greens regulation, it's fairly priced. The average is right around 12.8 there for Saturday. And the players they have on the board are some of the better iron players in the field. And the guys at like 13.5, are some of the elite level iron players. And then, of course, Corey Connors at 14 is your best iron player in the field. So I think they did a good job with the green and regulation board. There's nothing that I've jumped on at this point. I guess the Reeve over 12.5 is probably not the worst idea. And I hate Ches Reeve. I try to fade him as much and as often as humanly possible. But at 12.5 greens, he is a solid iron player. He hits a bunch of greens in regulation, just not long off the tee and also not the best putter. But we don't have to worry about that when it comes to greens regulation, right? We don't care how poorly he's putting out there. In terms of your fairways hit, it's the same as yesterday. They didn't move anybody. Like they kept English and Montgomery at 7.5 fairways. I would still lean on the under there. You could do the same thing for Post and take the under, but it's not my favorite board. There's a lot of volatility when it comes to these fairways. If players decide to lay up off the tee, they're going to have a much higher fairway percentage than if they go for it. So if you're going to take anybody here, I guess it would be unders on aggressive players. And just in terms of players that come to mind, I know that Lipsky's aggressive off the tee. I know that Hideki tends to be very aggressive off the tee. But a lot of the guys up here, I mean, Cam Davis under at 7.5, he's an extremely aggressive driver. A lot of the guys on here are known for laying up, like a Chris Kirk, a McCarthy, a Siwoo Kim, definitely a Brian Harman is known for laying up. So I definitely wouldn't be taking those sort of players unders, but I also wouldn't take their overs because these fairways are extremely narrow. They're running firm and fast. Even an accurate driver might have trouble hitting those fairways. So I would fade this fairway board. And I mean, even the inaccurate drivers like an Adam Scott, Stuart Sink, they have down at 6.5 fairways. So it's an absolute wash when it comes to the fairway board. But with birdies are better in strokes, when you can get some of this push equity, I think that you're going to get a really good hit rate today. Like I said, I think the average for the field is going to be right around 4 birdies or better when it comes to your round. It wouldn't surprise me if you saw a lot of these guys, especially like these well above average players, got to like 5 or 6 birdies too. So, we have that push in our back pocket, but they also have plenty of hit equity as well. And just to give you an idea, here's English. He only made 3 birdies yesterday under easy conditions, but he didn't birdie either par 5. He also didn't birdie the drivable par 4 on hole number 10. So he has a lot of room for improvement. JJ Spawn lost over 3 strokes putting yesterday en route to his poor performance. That's not going to happen again. Just there are a few guys on here at 4 birdies I definitely like. And Brian Harman would be one of them too. He's just got to get the putter working. All of those would be pretty solid picks. Let's see what's going on in terms of questions. Anthony says, does Postman over Higa not seem free? Let's take a look at it. I'm not a big fan of matchups, to be honest with you. Where's he at? Where's the Postman? There he is. Versus Kazuki Higa. I don't know enough about Kazuki Higa to really give you an idea of how, quote unquote, like free it would be. But he's won multiple times on the Asian tour. He's a superstar over there. I mean, we've heard a few of the announcers like refer to him as a Japanese tour superstar. I mean, if he's truly that good, I mean, I know Kita Nakajima is an absolute killer, and he's hardly played over there. Kazuki Higa's had a lot more success than even a Nakajima over there on that side. Yeah, I would lean towards JT Poston all day. I think Poston's going to have a really good day. But I've got a weird feeling about Kazuki over there. I think he's just a much better player than I think we realize. Kind of like Kita Nakajima. I think he's a much better player than a lot of people realize. So free, probably not free. But yes, I would definitely lean towards Poston. He's a much better player. Yi says, please, Matsuyama Surge. Yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm really rooting for the Matsuyama Surge. John says, what's your favorite 3-man? So that's the issue with 3-mans is you're going to get like a lower payout. Right. So if you end up going with a 3-man of just birdies or better, you're going to end up getting that lower payout. So let's see. Brian Harman, Harris English. Actually, let's use the Brian Harman matchup, right? To try and get rid of that multiplier. And let's take Poston understrokes. How about that? This would probably be my favorite 3-man, something like this. But I don't know. I don't really have a favorite, right? To be quite honest with you, this is just what I'm drawing up for you here because I'm playing everything even across the board. Literally, when it comes to my exposure of the props that I have access to, I'm playing them all the same exact dollar amount. So there's not really any favorites for me, to be honest with you. But Those three are pretty sweet. And London says, give you your favorite three leg. I just gave you guys my favorite three leg, but truth be told, I don't really have one, to be honest. Like I said, I play my props pretty evenly across the board. If I were you guys, and I know you're asking because you want to figure out what to play yourself, play a bunch of different cards, right? If you were going to play a $25 card or like maybe a $30 card, split it into three different ones, right? And enter three different three legs with different combinations of props so that you can cover your bases. Anytime everyone wants to go out there and just like only enter one card, put all of their units onto one card, I would always push back on that. I'm somebody that spreads out my units. I actually plan it out ahead of time. I bring out a little notepad. I plan out exactly what kind of cards I want to do. I keep tally marks of how many cards I have each prop in, how much dollar amount I have behind each prop. That's if you're going to do prize picks, seriously try and grind out ROI, that sort of thing. That's a must. Make sure that you guys are handling your slips the right way and differentiate yourself. Like I said, you want to make sure you don't have all of your eggs in one basket. But that is all I've got here for the stream, guys. Appreciate you guys stopping by, showing all the support here on the channel that you have. If you guys haven't already smashed that like button, do me a huge favor. Go ahead and hit that on your way out of here. And if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, first off, what are you waiting for? But make sure you do so you don't miss any of our content for next week. We have the American Express. It's going to be another full field event. There's actually 3 golf courses going on next week. So for prize picks, there's going to be a lot of moving parts. For Draftkings with the 3-course setup, there's a huge wrinkle that comes with that. A lot that we're going to have to talk about. It's a 3-round cut. That's the wrinkle I'm talking about because they make sure that you have a chance to play all 3 golf courses before cutting you. So going into Sunday, we go from like 144 golfers down to 70 or 75, whatever it ends up being. And at that event, it's actually top 60s in ties. It's another wrinkle that we have for the American Express that I found fun. They make it a smaller cut line because it's going into Sunday. It's a wild one. So we'll have a lot of fun with that event. Make sure you're subbed so you don't miss any of that content. And like I said, best of luck today. Yesterday, we ended up bringing home some GPPs on Showdown. A bunch of guys on the Discord ended up winning money. A few of them ended up actually winning those GPPs. I ended up 4x myself. Let's end the week strong. Let's make it 2 winning slates in a row. Hopefully on prize picks, we can go out there and cash out as well. But best of luck, and I will catch you guys for next week.